So, disruption is not a neutral concept. Companies make choices every single day. Do we go out and disrupt, or do we step back, sit back, and get disrupted? There is no issue that is more relevant to senior executives today that wakes them up in a cold sweat at 3 o'clock in the morning than the notion of being disrupted. Now, I've spent my entire career both in the practice of disruption. Reduxio is my 8th consecutive venture capital-backed software company in the enterprise space. I've been fortunate in that the prior 7 companies have all been successful. 2 have gone through NASDAQ IPOs, and the others have been acquired by companies like AT&T, IBM, Oracle, Symantec, and Iron Mountain. I've also been living a dual life. No, not the kind of dual life where an FBI agent is going to show up in the next 25 minutes during my talk and slap cuffs on me and make me do a perp walk out of here. I've had the unique distinction of living both in the world of practicing disruption and studying it as a professor for the last 20 years. 12 of those years at the MIT Sloan School of Management, and for the last 8 years at what has quickly become the world's largest graduate management school, the Holt School of Management. We've got campuses all over the world, and we are also a disruptive case study ourselves, growing from 30 to 5,000 students in the last 10 years, and taking massive market share in the management education market. So when we think about disruption, what do we think about? Okay, and I had retired from the world of startups about 7 years ago to go on and speak and consult. And in my consulting practice, both with McKinsey and my own individual consulting practice, one of the IQ tests I would always ask a client right out of the gate was, are you prepared for disruption? And as you can imagine, more often than not, the answer was an unequivocal yes. So if someone was to ask Wayne Huizenga, the CEO of Blockbuster, now Wayne Huizenga is not a shrinking violet. Wayne Huizenga personally started 3 companies that wound up on the Fortune 500. The first one was waste management. The second one was automation, and the third one was Blockbuster. So if you ask Wayne Huizenga, back during the peak of Blockbuster's success in the mid-1990s, when they had 8,000 stores, when they had 60,000 employees, when they had deals with every major Hollywood studio on the planet. Wayne, look at this company coming out of Silicon Valley. By the way, a company started by a guy from the Boston area that went to college at Bowdoin College up north of here, a guy by the name of Reed Hastings. Hastings created a great company called Pure Software. He IPO'd that company in 1995, merged it with Atria in 96, sold it to Rational in 97, went out to Silicon Valley to seek his fortune, like so many entrepreneurs do. And like any person looking for some home entertainment, he rented the movie Apollo 13 from Blockbuster on a Friday night. Forgot to bring it back. The following week, when he finally returned it to the store, what he was told is, Mr. Hastings, that will cost $44, please. Now, the name Hastings is an English surname, but he might as well have been Sicilian, because Hastings did not get mad, he got even. He got very even. Okay? And the story of Netflix is a story of disruption, and it continues to be a story of disruption today. So when you ask Huizenga, hey, you got this, Wayne? Yeah, I got this. Well, Wayne don't got this, okay? I don't know what your town's Blockbuster is doing these days, but my town's Blockbuster in Sudbury, Massachusetts is selling dog food today. That's not necessarily what Huizenga had intended. But Huizenga is not the only loser in this story. Over half of all Fortune 500 companies fell off the list in the period from Y2K till today. Think about that for a second. Here you are, you've achieved a level of status, you've achieved a level of scale, you are now a Fortune 500 company, you've made it. Well, no, not so fast. Now let's go back to a simpler time and place. The gentleman on your right, gentleman is a term I use loosely, is the boxer Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston was considered at that time one of the most devastating prize fighters in history. He had served time twice in state penitentiaries on armed robbery and assault. and beating the living daylights out of a cop, okay? Very few people wanted to get in the ring with Sonny Liston, and his nickname was the Bear. Liston decimated Floyd Patterson not once but twice in 2 consecutive heavyweight fights in the first round. He was looking for someone to take him on, and nobody would step up until this young, brash upstart named Cassius Clay, better known as the Louisville Lip, said, you know what, I got this, okay? Nobody gave Cassius Clay a chance. Everybody predicted that he would be out in the first round. Sonny's there on the right, just like Wade Huzienga, saying, I got this, victory is mine. And Ali is saying, it's gonna go 8 rounds, okay? Nobody thought he'd get through the first round. And it turns out Ali was wrong, it didn't go 8 rounds, okay? Our friend Liston could not lay a glove on Ali. And on the 6th, at the beginning of the 6th round, as the bell rang, Liston did not get off his stool. He did not go back into the ring. It was the first time since 1919 that a prize fight, a heavyweight professional prize fight, was lost because the champion refused to get back up and fight. Now, there was a rematch in Lewiston, Maine. Crazy story, we don't have time for it. But in that rematch, it wasn't Ali that went down in the first round, it was Liston. He went down in 1 minute and 44 seconds. And many of you have probably seen this photograph. It's one of the most iconic photographs in the history of professional sports, okay? Ali was the upstart. He was the Reed Hastings. He was the Netflix. I don't care if everybody says you are unbeatable, if you're impregnable, if you're unassailable. I don't care. I don't have an installed base. I have nothing to lose. And what Ali basically said is, impossible is nothing. That's the mantra of disruptors. Impossible is nothing. What Ali brought to the equation, what Netflix brought to the equation, was a new business model. He was a heavyweight champion that moved like a welterweight. He brought an agile, high-velocity business model, and Liston never had a chance, just like Blockbuster never had a chance. I float like a butterfly, I sting like a bee, one of the great taglines in modern history, okay? Thomas Von Cook, head of one of the largest private equity firms in the world. Even in established industries, you're going to see a lot of tipping points where old behavior changes and things will get ugly really fast. Let's go to beautiful Boston, okay? Let's think about a product that almost every man in this room probably uses or has used, the safety razor. In 1901, a young man by the name of King Gillette decided that the process of shaving with the old straight razors was not a good experience. Men were being cut constantly. It was a very unpleasant experience. And he came up with the idea of a safety razor. It completely changed the nature of shaving. And what he understood was the importance of the user experience, a theme I will come back to again and again. Why did Blockbuster implode? Because of the user experience of exploiting your customers, preying on human nature and procrastination, and driving your profit model through collection of late fees. Nobody liked late fees, okay? Nobody liked cutting their face with a straight razor. And so Gillette, not only did he invent the safety razor, he invented the most durable business model of all time. A business model which is the razor blade model that has been replicated time and again from the printer industry, from HP and Epson, to the people that make Nespresso and Keurig coffee machines, to the medical supply industry, and yes, even the jet engine industry is a razor blade model. You can buy a jet engine at cost from Pratt & Whitney and GE because they know they've got a 40-year high profit stream of spare parts and maintenance once you bolt that jet engine onto a 757, okay? And for 100 years, 1901 until very recently, Gillette dominated this industry. And then something happened, okay? And the something that happened is another brash upstart, a company called Dollar Shave Club, that with a $5,000 investment put together an in-your-face video on YouTube that generated 20 million views. In the last 5 years, Gillette's market share has fallen from 70% to 55%, and it is in free fall. And they just announced price cuts of around 15%. More importantly, they're trying to replicate the Dollar Shave Club model with the direct-to-consumer model, and they've pissed off CVS, their major distributor, and now they're competing with CVS, okay? Another example of disruption at work on a local level. okay? We all make our living in the IT industry. That's why we're here today. And there's no industry that is subjected to more Darwinian competition than the IT industry. There's a great book called The Master Switch, which is about the rise and the fall of many, many information empires, all the way from RCA, that was founded by our good friend Thomas Edison, right? And today we're seeing this increasingly with digital natives in the world of cable TV. Okay, there's a massive amount of cable cutting going on. Of course, Netflix, in many ways, is the company that instigated that entire switch. And we're going to see massive destruction in the cable industry you may or may not have seen lately, but Comcast is now getting into the mobile phone space at a very, very, to me, crazy time as growth is slowing and everything else, really just to defend their cable business, okay? So we can go through the financial obituaries and the financial intensive care unit reports all day long, but we don't have time for that today, okay? Now, I could teach a semester-long course to you on why large corporations struggle to remain vibrant and innovative, and why it's so difficult for a professor to find case studies of companies that remain innovative generation after generation. But since I don't have time for that, I'm going to sum it up in a single sentence. Robert Nardelli was one of 3 vice chairmen of General Electric under John Welch, the great Jack Welch, the greatest CEO in history. And he sums it up beautifully. There is a fine line between insubordination and entrepreneurship. And what that means is most companies are scared witless about cannibalizing their own businesses, and everything within the company is about preserving the status quo. Very few people share the philosophy of good old Steve Jobs before he passed away, which is if someone's going to cannibalize my company, it's going to be me, okay? And he got that. Nobody captures this better than Dilbert, okay? The great philosopher of our time. We need to disrupt our entire industry and we need to move quickly, says the inspirational pointy-haired boss. But check with me before we do anything. I want you to think like entrepreneurs, but not the brave ones, okay? That's exactly the way the world really works. So, what you're seeing from 1900, from the days that my grandparents came from Italy through Ellis Island, from the days that our good friends at Gillette started the Gillette Safety Razor Company, is a remarkable compression of what dominance allows companies to do. So in the period from 1900 to 1960, the companies that ruled the earth were manufacturing companies. The great companies of the day, Ford, of course, with the assembly line, RCA, GE, one of the few companies that continues to reinvent itself generation after generation because of its extraordinary leadership. Okay? That was a 60-year epic. And then we moved into the second epic, which is the epic of distribution that was dominated by companies like Walmart and UPS. That epic collapsed by 100%. That was a 30-year epic. And then at the time of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and the guys starting the client server revolution in Silicon Valley, the information age, that epic collapsed yet again to 20 years. And sometime around 2007 to 2010, we entered into the age of the empowered customer. I'm going to talk more about this in a second. But in the age of the empowered customer, everything shifted. People become CEOs of big companies because they're control freaks. There's no other way to become the CEO of a big company, okay? When you live in the age of the empowered customer, everything flips on its head. And when everything flips on its head, it makes it very difficult for large corporations to manage themselves. Okay, social media, the interactive web have changed everything, okay? And so as Mark Andreessen, who as a 23-year-old wonder kid at the University of Illinois, went on to create the Netscape browser, the first company to put Microsoft on notice, and the person who brought Tim Berners-Lee's invention to the masses, said so presciently, software is eating the world. And God, was he right. He was so right that what I saw in my consulting practice before I came back from retirement to take on my role at Reduxio is that many, many companies do not have the ability to keep up with Silicon Valley or to keep up with world-class software development organizations. And as a result of that, the number of companies falling off the Fortune 1000 in the 10-year period from 70 to 83, 35% fell off. Once the client-server revolution jumped in, that jumped to 60%. And in that period between 2003 and 2013, 70% of all Fortune 1000 companies fell off the list. Okay? And it's only getting faster. So this is just a point in time. What you may or may not know is that in the year 2007, everything happened. In the year 2007, roughly 10 years ago, we saw something that we've never seen before. The birth of the iPhone and the Android, the internet in your pocket, the birth of the biggest country in the world, Facebook, with 2 billion citizens, the birth of powerful video-based storytelling in YouTube with Twitter. Okay, this was the beginning of a consumer technology revolution, the likes of which we've never seen before. And then on the infrastructure side, Intel started using a lot of non-silicon material so that they could extend Moore's law. We saw the birth of IBM Watson in cognitive computing. We saw the democratization of big data with Hadoop. Okay, we saw GitHub, which became a profound platform for coding and social sharing. These are the kinds of things that were all brought to the world in 2007, an extraordinarily important year in history. And so when the rate of change on the outside of your company exceeds the rate of change on the inside, get in the crash position, okay? Assume the crash position, because we're going to come down hard, okay? The sharing economy is a completely new model. We have assetless companies. Airbnb today rents more rooms than any of the major hotel chains, including the Sheraton. They have a larger market cap than all 4 major hotel chains combined. They don't own a single bed, okay? And of course, the company we all love to hate, Uber, okay? This is an extraordinary story. And the story of Uber, very simply, was a story very much going back to Von Koch's point about how quickly things can change for old industries. I was in New York City about 3 weeks ago to give a keynote at a hackathon for Nestle, and I arrived at Penn Station in New York City at rush hour on a Friday night, and as I looked out at the taxi line, there was not a single person in line in the taxi line at Penn Station in New York City on a Friday night at rush hour. A taxi medallion 7 years ago cost $1 million. It was a license to print money. Today, you cannot give away a taxi medallion in New York, okay? That is how powerful these models are. This was a photo taken 2 blocks from my campus in Trafalgar Square. And of course, the British taxis are some of the best in the world. And so it's not that the British haven't delivered great service, it's that the perception of what's wanted is what's required is changing. Consumer requirements are changing, and the old industries are not keeping up, okay? And so many of you in the room are in retail, you're in healthcare, you're in finance, you're in automotive, you're in education. I can't imagine a single person in this room that has not felt the effects or will not continue to feel the effects of disruption, okay? I can put up market maps for pretty much any industry that you're in, and they'll all look exactly alike. The amount of investment, the amount of innovation, the amount of competitive intensity flowing into all of our market spaces is becoming overwhelming and impossible to keep up with. This is the education tech market. It could be fintech, it could be retail tech, it could be auto tech, it could be anything. In my own world, from Reduxio, marketing technology, marketing automation, 2,500 companies on the list, okay? And now we're entering into the 4th industrial revolution, the combination of cyber and physical systems. Okay, this was the theme of Davos in the World Economic Forum. This is drones, this is robots, this is artificial intelligence, this is machine learning. And it's only going to come faster and more powerful, okay? And so the question then you have to ask yourself is, does your organization have innovation in its bones? Are you a disruptor, or are you being disrupted? And I know what's a lot more fun, trust me, okay? And once again, we go back to the great philosopher of our time, Dilbert. And what's the pointy head boss say? We want to foster more of a startup culture to drive innovation. So we get to dress casually, work flex hours, feel that our work is valued, and we get equity in the company? Not really, okay? What would be the name of a culture where people get to work hard but don't get any of the things that you just mentioned, okay? If you do not create a culture that allows innovation to flourish, you don't get innovation. There's no shortcuts. So when the winds of change blow, and boy are they blowing today, some people build walls like Dilbert, and some build windmills. They harness the opportunity. And especially today in the age of the millennial, in the age of the digital native, okay, we need to understand how different these creatures are than we are. Okay, whether they're your kids, your grandkids, your nephews, your nieces, they're different. And some people get that. So for you in the financial services industry, there's a bank called Coho Bank. They understand that the average millennial couldn't give a damn where their passbook savings account or their checkbook is being managed. What they care about is the digital experience. They want everything in their phone, in their pocket. That's all they care about. And so what this bank has basically said is we're going to put a black box at the back of a digital experience, and we're going to call it a bank. This is how people build windmills. Okay? So in times of change, what do we do? As Jack Welch said, if you don't have a competitive advantage, don't compete. So from the point of view as we're at Reduxio, in my role, what do we do? Okay? Let's go mind the gap. Let's see what the gaps are. So I made a quick trip out to the Galapagos Islands. Okay? Guy named Charlie Darwin. Some of you may have heard of Charlie Darwin. He was a pretty smart guy back in the 1800s. He came up with the theory of adaptivity. And what does Charlie Darwin say? It's not the strongest, right? If Hewlett-Packard's in the room, forgive me. I worked for Hewlett-Packard for years. My brother's been there 16 years. But why is Hewlett-Packard carving off business units faster than they can think? Because scale no longer is an advantage. Scale today is a liability. And it's not about having 1,000 or 10,000 PhDs on your staff. Ask P&G how that's gone for them. Ask the pharma industry how that's gone. It's about tapping into a network of intelligence when you need it. It's about agility. It's about adaptivity. And then I went to visit another guy that knows a bit about innovation, a guy by the name of Tommy Edison. You guys know Tommy Edison? Tommy Edison was a pioneer in the same era as the time that RCA was being founded. It was about experimentation. It was about failing forward. Okay? That's what it's always been that way. And then you go back to Jack Welch, right? You don't need to be hit in the head with a 2x4 the way Blockbuster was. What you need to do is you need to change before you have to. And so today, what are some of the areas that are the most ripe for disruption? The single most fruitful area today is when you can remove complex, inefficient experiences. User experience innovation is an extremely important approach today in this highly competitive world that we live in. Every product is designed, okay? How many apps have you downloaded on your phones only to never instantiate them a single time because they're just too maddening to even figure out? So everything is designed, few things are designed well, okay? And so you go back to the Vitruvian Man, photo taken in the Leonardo da Vinci Museum in Rome. Da Vinci was a polymath, he was a Renaissance man, but he understood the importance of human-centric design. And so Reduxio, yes, we sell to companies, yes, we do. The 150 companies that have purchased from us are our customers, but we design our products for people. We don't design for a business, we design for a human being, because we understand that when you wake up in the morning, you got a lot of things that you got to worry about all day, every day. And if we can make your job easier by designing simplicity and ease of use into the product, then we've done something good for mankind, okay? And so here's a guy, he may not look like an anarchist, Sean Fanning, 19-year-old, Northeastern University student, clean-shaven, baseball cap representing the great Boston Red Sox. Looks like a pretty clean-cut kid, but make no mistake, he was an anarchist. He decimated the music industry and is yet to recover from the Napster experience. Now, what's fascinating about this instance is that there were many companies that could have profited from the MP3 era. Certainly Sony was a dominant force with the Walkman. You had Panasonic, you had Samsung, you had all of these Japanese and South Korean consumer electronics manufacturers, but none of them did. The company that capitalized, of course, was this one, Apple. This was the product that brought Apple back from the brink of bankruptcy. Why did Apple capitalize when no one else did? Because Steve Jobs took a human-centric design. He said the consumption and the discovery of music should be a joyous experience, not a frustrating one. If you played with MP3 files on a Diamond Rio or on a Sony Walkman, it sucked. I don't know any other way to describe it, okay? The appliance approach of an optimized iTunes, iPod device was exactly what mankind wanted at that time, and Apple is now the largest retailer of recorded music on the planet. They came out of right field. They were a laptop manufacturer that now dominates the music industry. And I don't even need to tell you what they did to our good friends at BlackBerry, okay? That's another Blockbuster experience right there. They own the market, and they fumbled it.